I want to share with you the fact that God is still performing miracles. During my prayer time this week, the Lord brought to my memory a time where He really revealed Himself to me. And I want to share this with you so that it may encourage you in something that maybe you've been believing God for and praying and asking God for, and maybe it hasn't happened. But during this particular time in my life, I was dealing with a health challenge that was going to require me to have surgery. And in fact, I was scheduled for surgery the next day. But during that time, I was wearing locks in my hair, and I had gone to my appointment to get my locks tightened or retightened. While I was sitting there in the chair of my loctician, there was a lady in there talking about this procedure where the doctors were wanting to put particles, really it's particles from a fence, and they put them into the body to block bleeding, because during that time for a month, I had been bleeding and had not stopped. I was under a lot of stress, but I was dealing with extreme extreme bleeding disorder. And so while I was sitting in the chair, I did not know this lady. I had never met her. And in fact, I had never seen her at the place where I go and get my locks retightened. But she was sharing about how that the doctors wanted her to have this procedure to stop her bleeding, and how that she would not do it because she didn't know what the long-term effects would be of them shooting these particles into her body, which when I looked it up and I researched it, those particles are the same types of particles that they use to put on fences. It's a plastic type of particle that they put in the body when a person is dealing with a lot of bleeding. But nonetheless, I sat quietly in the chair. I didn't say anything to her. And then she made a follow-up statement and said, if anything, what I did was I went to the health food store. I went and got some iodine. I put that in hot tea. I started drinking that, and that helped me. At that moment, I said to her, I said, ma'am, I said, you've never met me before, and I don't know you. I said, but what are the chances that the procedure that you're describing, which I had never heard of it myself, that you are actually talking about something? I'm scheduled to have surgery tomorrow morning. And I said, I've been dealing with this issue of blood for over a month. And so I'm now scheduled to have this procedure. And the lady then told me, she said, yeah, they tried to schedule me for that. She said, but I wouldn't do it. She said, because she said, I don't know what the long-term effects are going to be of them putting these particles in my body. That day, after I got my locks retightened, I left from there. I went to the health food store and I got some iodine. I started putting iodine in my tea. I started relaxing. I was in a stressful job at that time. I made changes in my life to just begin to slow down and pray about it. I canceled my surgery. And do you know, I never looked back. I never had to have that surgery. God healed me of that. I just want to share with you, with anybody who's dealing with something, whether it's an issue of whether you're dealing with a medical issue in your body, or whether it's just a prayer, something that you've been praying and you've been asking God for. I just want to remind you that God still answers prayers. I pray all the time. And that day when I went to get my locks retightened was no different than any other. I'm sure I got up that morning and prayed. And this has been some years ago. This has probably maybe been a good 9 or 10 years ago that this happened. But during my prayer this week, the Lord reminded me of He's done so many miracles. He's performed so many miracles in my life. I can't even count them. But that each opportunity, when He speaks to me something to encourage somebody else, I want to share my personal journey. And I want to share a little bit of my personal testimony to share with you that God still answers prayers and He still performs miracles. Don't get discouraged when your miracle doesn't happen when you think it should, but keep believing and trusting in God. God provided to me an angel that day in the form of that customer sharing something about a surgery I had never heard of before. And yet I was scheduled for that very surgery that next day. I didn't have to have that surgery. And the issue that I had and I was dealing with, it stopped. God answered my prayer. So I encourage you on today, don't give up on believing and putting your trust in God. Your faith and your confidence in Him will see you through to prayers being answered. And He does still answer prayer. I just want to share that with you today and encourage you and let you know that I love you and I stand in agreement with you if there's something that you are believing God to do in your life.